This is a scientific study. So obviously we're not going to read the entire study because in the Daily Tech News stream, that's not what we do. I do that typically on Enlightened Programming streams. However, in this study, which is from 18th of May, 2025, Security of Language Models for Code, a systematic literature review. This is what could otherwise be called a meta study. They took 68 relevant papers and they looked at the outputs of those studies, which are all related to security of code generated by LLMs. Usually meta studies do this kind of thing. They take a bunch of studies that already exist in the scientific literature and they do like a meta-analysis, which is when you put all these things together, what are the trends that you can see, etc., etc. Now, I'll skip a bunch of the stuff that they went over, but they reference all the studies that they looked at. They referenced the scope, the types of prompts that they use, the type of code output that came from the models based on the studies that they looked at, yada, yada, yada. You can kind of determine what they did here, right? So let me just find the portion. I think I have it noted here. Let's see. There's a specific word here. Is it here? Okay, I think it's down here. That's right. It's led me to that. So if I go down here and we'll look at it's down here. We'll look at the conclusion essentially that they have. So one of the things that they found is that a lot of these LLMs are very susceptible to backdoor attacks. Backdoor attacks are not the same thing as what you would think of when you're talking about hacking in general. Like you might think of like a, let's say, SQL injection, right? That you might think of that. It's not exactly the same thing. Although in some cases it is related because you can inject things like updated configuration commands and things like that, which is like kind of like a form of injection in the SQL world, but not exactly the same. What you can do is you can seed training data. You can set up prompts so that it can bypass restrictions on the type of code that the AI might output. You can even haphazardly make a bad prompt that generates bad code that the AI has no idea it's generating. It has no internal capabilities of critiquing its own code output. That's like one of the primary ways that these LLMs generate bad and insecure code. There are some other more minute or more detailed or more abstract ways that you can get an LLM to give you insecure code. But essentially, if you look at the conclusion of this entire section, they have to come to a conclusion for all the questions they ask, and you can go through this all and you can see what the conclusions are for all of the material that they studied. There are some disturbing trends that are disturbing but yet unsurprising to any of my regular viewers of the whole time I've been streaming here. And the conclusions are that essentially all the models have significant vulnerabilities. Every single one of them produced insecure code 30% of the time. Every single one. That was like the baseline. There were some improvements over time. Some of the LLMs improved over time. But as of the date of this study, which includes, I believe, all of the latest models, it's a 30% insecurity rate on everything that comes out of any LLM in terms of code. And it gets worse. If you ask the LLM to generate code that helps you to, let's say, enact a cyber attack in a code fashion. I believe there's something in the one of the references down here had it, but then they summarized it somewhere up above here. You can always feel free to read the paper and fact check me. I believe the number was something like it was over 50%. I remember that. It might have been 51 or 52, but it was over 50%, in the low 50s. every single LLM would absolutely produce code that was very, very overtly intended for cyber attack purposes. Every single one. And all you had to do was very simple adjustments to your prompts or one of these other backdoor attacks like I just covered, and it was super easy to get it to produce code for you to do that. And when it actually came to the number of outputs that developers accepted, so you can imagine things like GitHub Copilot making autocomplete recommendations for you, right? So let me see if I can find this. Developer, what was it? I think they called it like adoption. Maybe it's adoption. Yes, it was one of these, one of the adoption questions. Yes. There was a survey of 238 participants. It reveals that developers generally trust code completion tools more than code generation tools, even though they ultimately come from the same place. And so when they took the numbers of developers who did accept code with insecure code generation from LLMs, whether it was completion or prompted, 23% of them, or 22%, something like that, of developers accepted it. That's actually way bigger than I thought it would be. But that's what happens when you're hitting the tab key in your developer experience. And I can't remember who said it in chat. I think it was Lightspeed, about that startup founder who said, hey, we can build this in 2 hours or whatever it is. This is the kind of thinking that these AI systems, quote unquote, these LLMs, allow to happen. The thinking where my experience is what matters to me. This thing's going to complete some code for me. I trust it to do a good job, which is like why would you trust it? And 22% of developers are going to accept output that all LLMs as of today at least have a 50% security issue rate. That is a huge problem. And again, this goes exactly to all the biases and things that I like to have confirmed from my own arguments. Just joking. I'm joking. But it is some evidence that we are in bad shape in the tech industry. We do not have people who know how to value judge what the output of these things are, let alone value judge things even before AI. I've said this before, and I'll probably be saying it again many, many times. AI is essentially a box of all the poor decisions that the tech industry has been making in the last 10 to 20 years as a whole, all packaged up in an automated system where you can produce more of those decisions at a faster rate and make those decisions even worse. That's all it is, ultimately. Although there are some good use cases for it.